Happy almost Halloween. Sorry. You know, special ed, you gotta follow that over. We kind of have to be a unique breed to do what we do, right? This is Mike Bearden. Hey, I'm looking forward to this RPM number 2 for 611. It's really about monitoring student learning during instruction. I also want to hit a little bit about how about outside of instruction. As I mentioned, I think in the RPM is that I was surprised that so much attention from my school really is about outside of instruction. As important as the instruction environment is, it's so much about legalities, IEPs, how are you following up with parents, collaborating with teachers that don't want to show up to your IEPs, etc., etc. But for this purpose of this one, student learning, how do we assess them? I'll try to give you a breakdown of how we started off. I love that before, during, and after concept. It's not just from day to day, from lesson to lesson with students, but even for the week, even for the month, even for the semester. Our school runs on a modified block schedule, which literally means we cram an entire year into one semester. The students have 4 class periods a day. It's 96 minutes for each class. Yeah, you heard that right. 96 minutes for every class. So they have 4 periods. They have, of course, the attention span of maybe a gracious 8 to 10 minutes. So you have to break this up. So therefore, the need for BDA before, during, and after, even inside every 20 minutes or so, keeping kids focused on task and trying to provide the adequate instruction that they need. It started at the beginning of the semester where I included them in the development of the actual syllabus that we go through. Although I kind of knew the direction that we were heading, I did involve them because I understand, especially at high school, in this particular group of students this semester, for me, as largely juniors and seniors, they, operate on involvement and wanting to be heard. So I included them from the very beginning. So not monitoring their student learning from the very get-go, but having them involved, allowing them to be heard was very important. Now, as we laid out the entire semester, each week was a unit. Each week had its own assignments. Each week had its own lesson plans. And what we do is every other week I started breaking that into segments. First of all, I broke the year or the semester into 2 units. We've got 7 weeks or so, and then we had their midterm. It was focused on an individual opportunity to formative and summative recall back the information that we had talked about. Now, before you ask, how are they supposed to recall? Well, they actually get to use a study guide, and their study guide is based on the notes that they take every week. So you could say that this class is largely dependent or a result of whether or not they take notes. Now, what about those who can't take notes? We work on that as well. I try to provide as much one-on-one as I can during the times. I'll get to that in a second. So we've broken it down from the entire semester into 2 chunks, and then each chunk has these bi-weeks. Every week has either, we use technology in the form of Kahoot. If you've ever played that game, they log in. I set a set of 10 to 15 questions. They guess, so it's a fun way to recall. It's not graded. That's just a fun way to review. And the odd weeks, we actually have an opportunity to go ahead and, I bribe them. No, it's a token economy. And the token economy is, I love good questions. So whenever someone asks a great question or brings insight out of nowhere on anything that we've been discussing, or in fact anything to do with life, get them a ticket. Yes. Now, in addition to that kind of review, I allow student teach, what I call a student teach. I'll allow a student, if they want to come up and review middle of the week or at the end of the week, any kind of material that we've been discussing. They do that, they get like 5 or 10 of these things. It increases their chances come raffle time, and we raffle off sugar, of course. That's what that's what they work for. They love candy and food. And so that's how I've initially began my structure of where we were headed. The topics themselves, sorry about this glowing light down here, if you see that, I'm not trying to be ghoulish during the holiday season. It's just, extra lighting because it's so poor here in my office. So when I think of those strategies that I've framed the instruction, I try to repeat that as often as I can. When I talked about before, during, and after, literally, I'll start every day, every lesson off with a little review. Then I'm going to preview what we're going to cover during that day. We cover the material, and at the end of the day, I allow them both in small group and in large group setting to recap what we did cover. And there are those days where they're just going to go, I don't know. That's expected, especially with adolescents, but there are times where they'll blow you away. And I think what I've discovered is that in this approach, it's not just the academic learning environment that I'm allowed to train them in. What I see this as is a mode of operation for them to begin to understand they're going to have this at home, they're going to have this in their workplace, they're going to have people all the time giving them information, and they're going to have to do something with that information. And if I can help train a concept of before, during, and after that they can implement even into their daily work schedule, then that's been a bigger success than just whether or not they understand the math that I'm trying to teach them. So I'm trying to also train a little bit of their mind processing, whether they know it or not, which is great. Back to the actual learning environment. I do have every 2 weeks, we do have a quiz, and that's just, again, coming together and bringing the material so that it makes sense and they see how it tracks. We refer back to what happened the weeks and or months before and how it fits into place. So again, now they're learning big picture and small components. For about, I'd say, 6 of my 27 students, I got another one, that probably are really connecting. And they understand it and they're plugging right along. There's another 10 in there that are starting to kind of get the picture, and you can just kind of see it in them saying, okay, I see this repetition, I see this assessment from the quizzes, from the midterm that we just took, I understand that focus. And I love to provide feedback and timely feedback for them. So we'll go over the quizzes, we'll go over their grades, I'll explain to them, why are we doing this? They have a math journal where they literally take down our notes that we discuss, and the notes are not complex. It's not writing down equations or formulas. This is about vocabulary and different strategies to see how it implements it, as well as a couple charts here and there. And then that information is gathered, and that's what's usually on the exam. And again, the day before the exam, we go through in class, the entire class, a study guide, which is very similar to the actual exam the following day. So when I try to think about monitoring student learning during instruction, I feel like I've got a good plan and strategy to implement the best possibility for these students to not just receive information, but also the ability to recall it in different formats. But I've seen a lot of learning come outside of the actual learning environment. For example, I have one student who has been caught twice with marijuana, vaping, etc. And if you don't know about that, I'd be more than happy to talk to you about how they've disseminated it from marijuana to the paste form to the liquid form. And these students are convinced, I don't have marijuana, you can't get me in trouble. Yeah, it's the same thing. But anyways, and when I see him, either he's on in-house suspension in the office, those are teachable moments. A lot of bizarre learning actually happens then. It's kind of weird, but I love those moments as well to take advantage. And he's thinking, okay, it's just homework. But actually, I get some concentrated 10 or 15 minute segments where I can sit down with the student, actually go over material, and again, review. Maybe even an oral discussion where they can spit back, oh, wow, you were listening. I thought you had your head down because you were just, wiped out from all the Mary Jane you just smoked before school. Awesome. But you really were listening. Well, here's where we're headed, and this is why I need you to dial in on this. And it's surprisingly been much more of a relational than an academic setting, but learning has taken place. So I enjoy not just the academic strategies, but the relational strategies that we also input. Perhaps some of the larger challenges that within the classroom every day, there's got to be a portion where the students can work on their own, where they can work in small groups, because I need that time without an aid to sneak over to that 1 to 3 students in our class that need that attention. I'm not just talking about constant follow-up because their attention span is short. I'm talking about the ones that they're mild to moderate on the IEP, but reality is they're even worse than that, and you literally need to hold their hand and guide them through and give them specific instructions. Totally good. But if I don't plan that into my learning and instructional environment, then they don't get that framework that they need, that scaffolding, if you will. So there is a variety of methods within the teaching that I love implementing. It's a constant juggling of elements. I use the technology as far as a video on one side of the room so they can actually see. I'll break up that hour and a half plus moments with what I call funny commercials that get across the points of what we're doing. So just kind of give them that squirrel moment where it just snaps them back into reality. I love doing that, and maybe that's probably because I'm special ed, probably, who knows. But I do feel that I'm able to connect. And again, behavior modification, communication, and then education, that's always in the back of my mind. And whenever I do anything throughout the day, throughout the lesson, or outside of the classroom atmosphere, everything's a learning instructional opportunity with these guys. And I love it. Again, I've got the benchmarks. I've got the expectations written on the board. They know going into it how many points. They helped design the syllabus, so they know that the midterms were so much. They know that I can get extra credit if I do this. So everything's been very upfront, and I will remind them periodically as far as how that, so that they're aware of why. How am I getting an F? Or the other student says, dude, you get an F. You cannot get an F in this class. Are you kidding me? You just have to breathe and you don't get an F. Well, that's a reflection of something that's often another learning opportunity that transcends the educational moment. So it's been fantastic. I look forward to the discussion. I look forward to hearing from you and learning from you what's worked for you, the challenges that you've experienced, and how maybe we can incorporate each other's strategies into our classroom. So hope you enjoy it. Let's see, I'm recording this on a Friday. Yeah, it's about a week ahead. I've got some lesson planning to do, as I'm sure you do as well. So take care, and we will talk soon. Look forward to it.